Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to volume 26 of the Bellringer. Today, I am delighted to welcome Gabriella Kusz, or Gabby, who is the CEO of the Global Digital Asset and Cryptocurrency Association, and she will be speaking to the challenges in regulating the cryptoverse. And there's quite a lot of challenges, as we all know. Gabby is a thought leader with over 17 years of experience in financial services, public policy, and sustainable programming innovation. Prior to her executive role at the GDCA, she was a co-chair, regulator working group at the Government Blockchain Association, and worked in global public policy and development at the International Federation of Accountants and the World Bank. Welcome, Gabby.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me today, Stacey.
It is terrific. So before we get into some questions and stuff, can you talk to us a little bit about the GDCA and its mission? I know we've been partnering with the GDCA for our After the Bell events, and it's a terrific organization. So if you would just take a couple of minutes and just talk about that.
Sure. So the Global Digital Asset and Cryptocurrency Association began actually from a grassroots movement. So it was a group of interested industry professionals that were really looking to advance stewardship for the digital asset and cryptocurrency space. It started, like I said, from a small group of interested industry actors, and today we represent over 80 member firms. We represent both small, medium, as well as large firms, and the goal is really to advance both standards and guidance, education and certification, and then globally sensitive advocacy. So really functioning more as a source of information, of research data and perspective that can help inform policy decisions. So that's just a little bit about us.
Yes, well, it's a terrific organization, and I encourage anyone out there who is involved in this space to look them up, to join them. They have classes, I know you have different programs, and very active in advocacy as well. So speaking of that, I know you've been meeting with congressional leaders, and I'd like to get a feel from you about what their attitude is towards this space, and what does the industry need to address?
Sure. So I always like to take this from a point of, framing it around the economic and financial sector transformation that we're really seeing underway. This isn't just a different asset class, it's changing the way people engage and exchange value. So from utilizing centralized entities towards peer-to-peer. When you have this type of economic or financial sector transformation, there is a lot that needs to be done around education, around raising awareness, around helping people understand the context of what's happening, and then learn how to engage constructively to create legal and regulatory frameworks that balance, right? So that balance the need for technological innovation and advancement of the sector with the very real need for consumer protection and market integrity. And so it's along those lines that we have been acting, very successfully to engage with congressional offices. This past year, we did over 100 Hill meetings with various representatives and their staff to really encourage people to understand, what the power of digital assets are, what responsible innovation in this space looks like, and how they can move forward to create legal and regulatory frameworks that both embody as well as enhance that. So I think if I would say, what the attitude or the perspective on the Hill is, right. I think most offices that we speak with, it's about learning and engaging and understanding and working to come forward with sort of that balanced regulatory approach.
Are they receptive to it? Because, obviously there's been a lot of volatility in the space. And, I would think that there would, is anyone more of an advocate than others? Is it, really like to get your feel on that.
Sure. So I think you'll find that certain offices have been sooner to kind of understand and embrace this and are more open to driving, domestic industry development here in the U.S. So keeping U.S. jobs and U.S. companies here at home. Right. You'll also see at the same vein, and this is why it's such a beautifully bipartisan issue, that there's a lot around ensuring that there is appropriate, realization of the potential for social outcomes. So extending opportunities to unbanked underbanked communities, ensuring access to finance, especially for small and medium enterprises, and really trying to ensure that, some of the challenges that we've seen with the traditional financial sector and the legal and regulatory framework there, that they don't carry over, and that we can actually ensure that we are fully realizing and enabling this. You had asked, are there certain, representatives that are, more supportive of digital assets than others? And I think yes, but I also think it's so early in this game still that I think it's really about encouraging understanding. And I think over time, what we have seen is that from the very beginning, when we started to talk about balanced regulation and supporting, in particular, self-regulation of the industry, so not a substitute for government regulation, but really a complement to that functions like a public-private partnership with industry actors and expertise coupled with, government regulation and backbone. In the beginning, I think when we started kind of undertaking more active Hill advocacy, I think that you had seen a little bit of reluctance or questioning, a lot more of sort of basic foundational knowledge laying. So talking about what is blockchain, talking about what are digital assets. Today, I think we've done a really solid job of getting that foundation set. And so now the conversation is more about, what pieces of legislation can we bring forward? So we are looking at pieces such as the Lummis-Gillibrand bill, which came forward and talked about a number of different issue areas. We're also looking at the Digital Commodities Exchange Act, which came from the House Agriculture Committee. And then we're also looking at the Digital Commodities Consumer Protection Act, again, out of the Agriculture Committee. And each of these, I think, it's funny when you look at sort of the trajectory and the evolution of different pieces of legislation, almost as milestones or markers, you're seeing a generalized acceptance or agreement around some of these like basic core principles around taxonomy, around the need for clarity for stablecoins and payment tokens, around the need for clarity around custody. And, also included in each of those has been a component of self-regulation. So I think that, I don't like to say that there's people who are, there are obviously some voices that are more louder than others in support of digital assets. But I think that this is still a process. So it's still a little bit premature to say someone is pro or con digital asset just yet.
Okay, I understand that. Obviously there's been a lot of volatility in the last couple of weeks in the wake of the collapse of FTX, and then you have you have BlockFi, and then now, prior to that is Celsius. I don't know, I'm sure there may be others coming. How do you view the crypto environment, and how has this impacted what you and the GDCA have been trying to do?
Sure. So I'll kind of start with the recent collapse of FTX and some of the work that the Global Digital Asset and Cryptocurrency Association has done in the wake of that. So we have actually stood up a steering committee. We are working to elaborate upon core principles that outline some of what we see as very obvious challenges that arose and actually perhaps underpinned some of what we saw coming out of FTX. So these include things like appropriate disclosures, appropriate risk management and internal controls, appropriate liquidity and modeling, ensuring that you have proper accounting and bookkeeping, and also ensuring that you have an independent audit. These pieces are not revolutionary. They're actually quite accepted. And so it's really about helping a lot of these firms to understand the importance of them, not just say this is something you must do, but why you do this in order to create globally competitive, resilient businesses, because you're right, it is volatile. So, just like I always tell people, I harken back to the Three Little Pigs, you build your house of straw, you build your house of sticks, you build your house of bricks. When you have a very volatile environment, it's going to be the house of bricks that's still standing when all of this settles. So I think that this is the piece that, from our side, yes, we know that these are best practices. They should be undertaken. But now it's about helping to bring together industry actors so that they understand the value of that. They understand how, even if, legislation or regulations are passed, there are still pieces of this from a principles basis that needs to be embedded and supported. And that's why, at least from my side, I love the concept of self-regulation, because it is really about teaching, growing, and building. And so that's the piece that I think, really resonates and comes through in the global DCA core principles.
Well, I think self-regulation is great if people do adhere to these principles.
Yeah.
The challenge is when obviously with government is that they want to make sure, it's a balance between oversight, self-regulation, and innovation.
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to still innovate in the industry. Right now, I think there is a crisis of confidence in the cryptoverse. So I don't know if self-regulation would be something that outside investors would feel comfortable with. What do you feel about that?
I think that, it's self-regulation coupled with regulation. So right now, you're right. It is a crisis of confidence. And the only way to reinstill that is to bring people around the table and to somewhat self-police, self-regulate, and advance sort of a, strong, constructive community for the digital asset space. Yes, you will have regulations that come in legislation, but you're still going to have to wait for that to come through, probably for 18 to 24 months. And so what happens in the meantime? How are you going to stabilize things? How are you going to advance the health of the industry? It's not going to happen on its own. Sometimes when we talk about self-regulation, we always talk about the fact that it usually precedes a lot of like formal regulation. And that's because any industry has the ability to kind of pull people together around its common core and to bring people on a journey so that they're building constructively. And yes, there will be, regulation that will come. And that I think will be a good thing. That helps to mature the industry, that helps to advance mainstreaming. And it will, I think, quell a lot of what we've seen with regards to, shattered confidence or questioning around the, veracity of some of the claims and statements that are made around things like proof of reserves, so on and so forth. But what do you do in the meantime? And I think that's the piece that it's like, even if there is regulation, will that be enough to reinstill confidence? And then if your goal is to be expediting this process efficiently and effectively, so I always talk about like the 3 E's, then, you have to do something. Like we always joke, like with great power comes great responsibility. And like, that responsibility, like just like there's personal responsibility, there's industry responsibility. And this is a time for industry to come together and to demonstrate that they are mature voices, that they are firms that believe in high integrity and high credibility of their industry, and that they are able to, help calm, comfort, and to bridge that confidence gap that you're going to have between now and whenever regulation comes through.
And how you talked about the 3 E's, but how are you advocating for this with your members? How are you getting the word out to, outside this group that the industry is going to do this, that they are going, they are looking at best practices, they are, advocating for all of this, because it's still, there's still that little mystery, there's still that insecurity. I work with a lot of financial advisors and such, and they're very cautious about investing in companies like this or in utilizing crypto and such. If regulation hasn't come in through yet, what can you do to allay these fears?
Sure. So I think a lot of it is about, doing things like we're doing today, which is talking about, what, trying to speak to as many people as possible, doing media interviews, doing discussions, thought leadership pieces. From our side, we also will be very shortly publishing our 6 months of research on self-regulation, which we undertook over the summer, just ahead of all of this, in light of what had happened with Terra Luna and Celsius. When you're building an institution, self-regulatory entities are actually like formal governance institutions. So there has to be a process by which you're managing that growth. And so we've tried to do a very open and inclusive process in, garnering perspectives, ensuring that we have representation both from traditional financial sector actors as well as emerging, and then trying to raise up this self-regulatory entity. And I think that ultimately, the confidence and credibility comes through process. Whenever you do these types of things, and again, like I've worked in very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environments. We call these VUCA environments. They have a name. So not the craziest environment that I've ever worked in by far. But, you create comfort through process. It has to be methodical. It has to be involved. It has to be participatory. It has to be representative. It has to be open and transparent. And so that's a lot of what we've been trying to do over the past few months and what we will continue to do. I think, this is still an emerging industry and we're still an emerging entity ourselves, right? So we are building and growing as fast as we can to keep pace with everything that's underlying in terms of development of the industry. But I always tell people governance institution building, it is a long-term project. It is not something that you get in 12 months and you're done and you never have to revisit it. So I think, confidence has been shaken. It will be a process, but if that process is open, transparent, representative, these are pieces that help people to understand what this industry is, who these actors are, and ultimately what they may become.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you for your insights on these issues. It's really very much appreciated and obviously very topical. I'd like to thank you all for listening in to today's Bellringer, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.